there's been a few things on the agendas that took a little time to build the RFP the way we wanted it. But tonight, we're gonna review the RFP for the OPM. And again, these acronyms that you're gonna hear a million of them over the next few years. But OPM is Owner's Project Managers. They are the town's eyes and ears for the project, from start to finish. In most cases, we would contract with them for the clerk of the works, as well as them being on board with us as we build what we actually want for a police station, as far as what the needs are, and they would help us along the way and be there from start to finish. So for me anyway, this is probably one of the most important pieces to the project, is getting the right owner's project manager on board. And that's up to us to choose it. So tonight, what we're gonna do, I'm gonna ask Mike in a couple of minutes to walk us through the RFP that's written. If there's anything that we wanna tweak in the RFP, we certainly can do that. After we go through it, answer any questions, the final piece that we need to add into the RFP are the dates. How long the RFP will be on the street, when we want them back, and what's the time frame for the interview process, and what are we gonna break it down to? How many do we wanna see? How many do we want the administrative team to review? Do we want them to bring us 3? Do we want them to bring us 6? That's our call. Okay, so with that, Jamie, you want to do a lead-in, or you want me to go right to Mike?
Go right to Mike.
Okay, Mike, take us through.
Okay, so 3 of us worked on this. Pam, Mark Sorella, our attorney, Pam's our purchasing agent, and myself, and we worked through it and finally met for the last time on Monday, added some more stuff in, changed a few more things, and this is what you have in front of you. So we introduce, the laws governing construction in Massachusetts. Say what everybody is, individual, the OPM project manager. There's a lot of firms out there that do this. Some are very experienced. There's less today. Some of them have gotten bought out by big firms. But we're just gonna put it out there. We give an estimate, which is a rough estimate, of 40 million, somewhere in that. We don't know exactly where, but we will. Probably OPM services starting in March or April, probably April. We don't even know what we're building. We know we're building a police station, but how we're gonna build it. We will have an information session. That's a big thing. You get everybody. We could have it here. We could have it at the police station in the probably in your conference room where you do education, because then they'll see what you have. We can take them on or you guys can take them on a tour. We'll all walk around, and then we start going into qualifications, professional engineer, professional architect, registered. You'll pretty much see everybody really coming into this with a lot of experience. People don't do this, or don't do it well if they don't have a lot of experience in construction. We talk about Pam Vickery. She's our chief procurement officer. She handles everything, sending them out, putting them on the website. They'll pull them down, keeping stuff after we do the the educational meeting to talk to them all. We'll send more stuff out in addendums. And then we comment that they'll be part of the interview process when we're interviewing and going through architects. Now, if you go through this, there's just like, so this, whoever they are, whatever firm they are, and the person and the clerk, all of these bullets go through everything they're going to be doing for us. The OPM does cost estimating as well as the designer. So when we meet after, going through phases and completing phases, there'll be estimates by the designer, and at points there'll be also estimates by the OPM. A lot of OPM firms are actually estimators as well. And then the two groups can reconcile, go through the estimates, what did you do, what did you do, why do you have more on that? And in the beginning, it's very rudimentary, because you don't really know. As you narrow down and get more detail, the estimates will mean a lot more, and they'll usually come closer and closer together. I mean, we have the regular schematic, the rough basic of this is what the building's gonna be, how big it's gonna be, more like blobs on paper. You get into design development, you start working out things, engineers start working, designing heating, electrical. You get much more things worked out in the building. They start doing the documents. There's lots of meeting during construction documents to make sure we like what they're doing. Going through all that. Bidding. The OPM does a lot of work during the construction phase. You'll see in the next bullet on page 3, the clerk of the works, they hire a clerk, provide them for the full construction period. The clerk keeps track of things, also does things like when we're pouring concrete, they're coming in and calling the guys in to take samples of the concrete, do brake tests, running a lot of and there's meetings every week, construction meetings, so as you're going through that, everybody, building a building is really a group of people all working together to make it happen. It's not any one firm or person because everybody leaves every construction meeting with homework. And if they don't have the answers by the next meeting, they get grief. And the clerk does a lot of, photos and stuff. The team will show up at monthly building committee meetings, bring reports, pictures, what went on, where we're going, and what we're looking ahead to. So there's quite a lot of, there's a lot of stuff we ask them to do. But, I mean, they're doing daily construction oversight. The actual project manager's probably only there a day a week, or more is needed. Everything is as needed. But when you go through the next 2 page 4, there's a million things that a clerk is, that the project manager, OPM, is actually required to do. Making sure it meets code, building, ADA, fire. So there's a million things you can see in this whole that we require them to be on top of for the entire project. Including, certified payroll, applications for payment that get worked on when you get through at the end of every month. So there's just a million things that'll go on that they're responsible for. So we lay that all out in section 4 in the beginning. And then when you get onto page 5, section 5, we spell out a few more things about the OPM, the qualifications they need. And then we go into additional information and how we're gonna rate them. So everybody here, Tom and I were talking about a little earlier, is all these firms will prepare a pretty massive book of all their qualifications, all the jobs they've done, resumes of all the people they're proposing to work on the project, from the clerk, the project manager, an assistant project manager is usually, because nobody's here, nobody works 52 weeks a year. And this project will roll along no matter what, so there'll be more people from a firm involved in it. So we have submission requirements. It's a DSB form, Designer Selection Bureau, and this is Mass state law stuff, that they have to submit. And it has, they're required, on the DSB, it has every project they've done for the last several years. And that's a document that's also in the state that they keep on every contractor that's doing public work. And they have to keep updating it. So they're gonna be putting that whole package together. So we're gonna get a batch of books that are 1 inch or 2 thick that have all this information in them.
Yeah.
You can read it before you go to bed. But you'll find out a lot when we start going through it. And then this is another law thing that we have to put in this, how we're gonna evaluate all these. So the next section, section 8, we go through and tell them, you know, how we're gonna rate them in related experience, advantageous or highly advantageous. So that's the first thing that gets done when we receive all those, is they've gotta be run through and just check out the things, you know. How many years do you have? Over the last 5 years, how many have you done? Experience in 2, experience in 3. Then you go to extended experience. You know, what have they done? Size of the project, similar projects. Obviously, we're looking for, everything's project specific, or building specific, so we're looking at people who have done police stations, have done, and people mostly focus on 1 or 2 things. Most, I mean, OPMs do a lot of things, but doing a lot of police stations or joint public safety buildings is something that we're looking for. So we go through all that. Team and key staff, that's all in the book. So you get to see who they are. And the construction, like the construction world is a very small world. So all these architects and all these engineers, if you've been doing business, if you've been around in Massachusetts working in construction, or like I've been in Massachusetts working for a really long time, all the names come back around again. And they either did a really good job or a really bad job. And it's kind of hilarious when you start interviewing them. People who come in for, I mean, an architect comes in looking for doing an interview and brings an electrical engineer that we wanted to get rid of on another project and brings them in. And so the architect doesn't get the job. So it's a very small world. Everybody knows who everybody else is and how well they've done on every project in the past, because everybody talks about it. I mean, we fill out forms about them, the construction company, and that's all required to be sent to the state. And the lady that works for the state right now is really big, you know. Contractors don't want you to give them a bad rating, but Deb, don't remember her last name off the moment, but she says, be honest, you don't want someone else in the same situation you were just in. So, I could be brutally honest. Or very, you know, we've had a lot of good contractors work for us over the years, so that's a good thing. Go to the next, page 9. A work plan, you know, who's gonna do what, how are they gonna do it, when are they able to start working. So once we've gone through all this and evaluated them, and this is like not everybody in the world, it's really everybody on the committee, these are just general things that will get them in the door and get them into an interview. So when you go to number 10, the interviews, an interview will be there, the committee will be here, they'll bring in people, they'll bring in a whole batch of people that are gonna work with them, they'll already have told that. But the interview is really where you're gonna come down, because anybody can write anything. Not that they'd lie in their things, but you're gonna pick someone who you like, who you think will do a good job for you, who you think will work with you. And a lot of things come out at the interview. And some people, you might not know them that well from just reading reading the book, but when we were interviewing for the DPW garage and admin, we had 3 firms come in, and firms with more experience we usually schedule later, like the third interview or something, the least experience, but the first firm got up and they built 1 DPW in Massachusetts in the past 5 years. We're like, yeah, okay. And the next firm gets up and they had built or designed 5 in Massachusetts in the last 5 years. We thought, oh, that's pretty cool. And then the third firm gets up and shows us pictures of 25 DPWs they built in Massachusetts in the last 5 years. We're like, okay, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know, these guys do good. They did a great job on the DPW. It went really well. So that's the big thing. That's when you're going to see if you connect, if you believe. Interviews can go really well for firms and really bad for firms. If they're not prepared, or if they've taken things for granted, or if they're not truthful. And the rest of it is actually just forms. So they're a certificate of non-collusion, they're not working with anyone else, you know, any of the other people involved in the project are colluding to make either themselves or both of their more money. State tax laws, they're paying taxes. Certificate of vote, so we know the people who actually own the company are signing off on this and they're qualified to actually put it in writing. And then when you go to page 11, this is our agreement with them. And it just goes through the scope of services, performance, the term of the contract. Earlier in, we say, from like a notice to proceed to them, until the final punch list is completed, all the training's been done, everything that, when a project finishes, they have to train everybody who's gonna be working on the building, and people that are in the building, how to use it. They have to provide books, warranty books, operation and maintenance manuals for everything. all the products that were used by every single contractor. And that all that goes through the OPM, they sign off on, that it meets the intent, so that we have enough information going forward. If we have to, who made that fan, who's the supplier, how long is it warranted for? Because basically, it's the material warranties that give you more. In Massachusetts, a builder's only required to give you 1 year of everything, labor and material. It seems kind of unfair to me, but I work for the owner. But if you just go through that's really, it goes through the agreement between the town of Franklin and the OPM. And after we pick someone, which is usually after the interviews, everybody will vote on who, have a discussion, talk about what do you like, what did you didn't like. And then this is a non-price proposal, so this is just a qualifications based. So you're really picking the person, the 1, 2, and 3 who you think would do the best job, and then it's up to Jamie and us to negotiate a price. They come in with a price. And then first you want qualifications, then if you can't reach, which has happened before on multiple projects, the high school was one of them that didn't have the qualifications, some of them didn't really have, and then the prices, and we ended up picking the third choice. We did not select those choices. Those were actually done by a board at MSBA, but we got to where we wanted to be. It's, everything here is we have to all do what we think is best, no matter what, for the town. And if some other group, like MSBA was one that came up with some crazy things that we weren't gonna just agree and go along with. I think we were the first people to throw out the first 2 architects, but everything works out for a reason in the end. If you truly go through the process, you do the interviews, it will all work.
All right, Mike, and just before I ask a few questions, just a couple of quick things, so that I want to make sure everybody understands. And the team and key personnel from known as project manager, which is basically going to be, Mike, in some of his conversation was talking about the architect piece, maybe not the OPM piece. But the OPM is going to, one of the things that, and I give Mike a lot of credit, I've worked with Mike on 5 projects, and he really knows his stuff, and he knows his people, and knows the people that are out there. And it's so important when we're meeting and talking to the people coming forward with RFPs, is to have them identify the team that would be working on this project. Because although the firm might be great, you might be getting the new kid on the block as your person for this job. So it's important for us to make sure that we identify when we talk to them, when they're in front of us, who are we getting? Who is going to be our point person for the Franklin Police Station? And to me, that's a really important piece. The other thing I noticed in here, we identified 3 night meetings for presentations to, whether it be town, well, we know we're gonna have one to the town council, maybe to the finance committee, whatever. What we didn't identify is night meetings with this group. because there would be some. And I'm not sure whether we need to or not. That might be a question, Mike, or Jamie, that we talk to Mark about to make sure. My fear is we identified it for one piece, but we didn't identify it for the other,
Okay.
Yeah,
okay?
Yep.
because we usually have, so every project will have, you gotta meet monthly while you're in construction, because you gotta pay bills, you gotta discuss things, you gotta talk about change orders.
It just didn't identify day or night, and
Yeah.
that's the part that I think is certainly important
Yeah.
for us, to make sure that that's laid out and there's no question in their minds when they bring their proposals forward. Okay, sorry to jump in here, but any questions from Mr. DeLarco?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things. Are we going, the people that we pick, whoever it may be, are we gonna be able to go see police stations that they have done? I mean, I think it's a big thing for me. I wanna be able to, say, oh, I like this, I don't like that, I don't like this.
When we get to the architect's
The
piece,
designer.
that's
Okay.
the designer.
I just-
Yeah, no, you're absolutely
Yep.
right, and it's important.
Good.
And obviously, we would go to, and in most cases, our OPM would be setting up those meetings and walkthroughs,
All right.
so that we would get the opportunity to walk through the different police stations that the architects have built. But that's again why, for me, an OPM is very, very important, because they're such an integral part of the building and the beginning of the process, and helping us as a committee to get through and walk through a project that maybe not everybody has been in the construction world and knows one thing from it. Like, I know when it comes to, when we're talking about design pieces, Michael is going to demand that we have certain mechanicals, a specific mechanical piece that he has in every building in the town. But that's that's something that we put into it to make sure that we get what we want. Am I correct, Michael?
Yes, so we make a lot of things proprietary, because in all our buildings, you want the same hardware, the same locks, same HVAC control systems, things that we've used a lot of times that we know are the best in the industry that will last. The hardware on the doors in here, the keying, everything, so that we only have to stock one product.
Right.
It's still competition, because somebody has to put it in. We're not telling them who, they just have to be qualified to put it in. But we want a product that's the same, so you can go from building to building and only stock so much stuff. And it's better to pay, $600 for a cylindrical lock set that's lifetime guaranteed than from, pay $200 for one that's gonna break in a year.
Yeah, I get that. That's perfect, yeah. I'm like I said, I just, I'm just,
If you go to places too, that's the big thing, you're right, Bob,
yeah,
is you go to places and you talk to the people that
Right.
work there
that's what I'm thinking.
and see if they hate their building, that's definitely a problem.
That was in the back of my mind, I didn't want to say anything.
Kind of like the chief in his existing building.
It served a purpose.
But it has outlived that. Anything else?
No, I'm all set, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Any questions? Sure, David.
Mike, the contract is lump sum. Is that, how do you do that with this type of contract? It seems tough because there's no real defined tight scope. Is that, do they come into you and say, here's a cost based on an assumption of a 12-month construction schedule?
Well, they're here for a long time, so
Yeah.
in here, we put that from the time that we send them a notice to proceed, we've agreed upon a fee, we picked them. See, the OPM doesn't go away. They don't ever go away practically. I mean, they could be here several months after the building's occupied. They're the one group. I mean, we've been lucky in other things, that designers have stayed around. On the high school, the contractor even stayed around for like 3 years afterwards.
years.
But
Well, yeah.
these guys just do this, and they know what the square footage, the time frame, how many years they're actually gonna be with us, and what it's worth for them to, you know, make a profit and do the job.
And they have some set piece, some,
Parameters,
yeah,
yeah.
set parameters that they will do, and there's overages, you know, anything in excess, they have the opportunity to come back. But just so that everybody understands, the way this works is we will, as a committee, pick the OPM 1, 2, and 3, as Mike alluded to. But then Jamie, who is the only person that can negotiate contracts for the town of Franklin, he's the one that negotiates the fee with the prospective OPM. And at that juncture, you figure out whether they're in the ballpark or they're not in the ballpark. Sometimes it's helpful if you like 2 and maybe not as much 1,
Right.
you know.
Price down. Competition is good, right?
Competition is good.
That's good.
Competition is good. Anything else, David?
I have one more.
Sure, go ahead.
Mike, who establishes the overall project budget? Do you do that and then have the OPM obviously review and assist you with it? So like stuff that the GC doesn't cover, owner costs, like testing and things like that?
So that does go into the whole, it is OPM, it's the cost of FF&E,
Right.
furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. So the bottom line is everything, so you come up with an overall project cost that includes the OPM's cost, the architect's cost, the FF&E cost, the like computers and equipment cost. In police and fire, there's a lot of different stuff that costs lots of money that needs to be bought during this project. So when you get to this, when you start, you have all new stuff. That's kind of the way it works. So you get a whole new lease on life, you have a new building, you have all new stuff in it. You've done everything you need to do, and that's where a project cost, for an instance, Franklin High School had a project cost of $104 million, which included all the furniture, like all the stuff in every science, every single thing in that building. The actual construction cost was in the 70s. But there's a lot of, that's a big building, but everything, there's a lot of other stuff to get. And public safety has more different stuff than a school does or a senior center does. And so as you work through that, different people, I mean, there's furniture consultants that we've used. Most of them haven't been, you know, absolutely great. The person who worked in the schools, but the person like who worked on the public library was great.
Yeah.
You know, the senior center, they did a great job. You know, a lot of people, but that is a specialty. Interiors are a specialty. But you're gonna get into stuff like radio equipment, all these other things that are like
Unique.
Very unique
Unique to a
things.
police station.
to a police station.
Yeah.
Nobody else has them, but that's kind of what makes it interesting too, for me.
For everyone.
You learn a lot.
Anything else? Okay, Kelsey?
Yeah, I just had a question on the, going into the selection process, the extended experience qualifications. So both the extended experience and the extended team, when writing like the second bullet point, it's limiting to less than 4. And I don't know if that, I'm not sure if that's on purpose, because then it would basically state if you're kind of limiting, like, I understand, having less than 2, but over, over 2 but less than 3 gets you advantageous, but then it reads having 3 but less than 4 gets you highly advantageous, so what if it's over 4? I don't know if that's just a mistake, or,
Did-
I would think that it would just be over 3,
Over rather
Three.
than,
and then no less than 4, like it would just be over 3. And it's for both the, extended experience and the extended team experience.
Yeah, that's a good comment. We try to get,
No, yeah,
because,
I figured.
and to know that there's only, depending on the size of the firm, there's only so many projects that they could have actually done.
Yeah,
And you're actually looking more for the, not necessarily the projects that the team has done, but the projects, or that the company has done, I should say.
Right.
But the projects, the team you're actually looking to hire that's standing in front of you has actually done.
yeah. No, it makes sense. It just, I think it was just a mistake to cap on the second bullet.
Yeah, it could, we'll talk about that.
That's all.
anything else, cousin?
No, that's all I had.
Anybody else? Jamie, anything?
Other than dates.
I know, that was my
No,
next,
mate.
that's my next. Okay, and having been through a few of these, and I just briefly spoke with Michael and Jamie about this. Putting the dates out here as to how long do we want to put this request for proposal on the street for, where some people say 3 weeks is the right time, 4 weeks is the right time. I think anything over 4 it gets a little too much. But I believe personally that, we're not in any time crunch here. So I like the 4 weeks because I've seen in the past on occasion when, you have an OPM that's looking to bid on the project and he sees a 3-week time frame and he looks at his workload and sees he's got 3 others he's got to get in the next 3 weeks, so he passes on yours. This at least buys us another week and maybe gets us another proposal, maybe 2, because we've allotted a little more time for them to put the proposals together and get them to us. So, unless anybody feels strongly another way, I think that might be the right direction for us to head. The other piece is when we hit the street with this, and there's some advertising that has to go on, local
Paper, et
local
cetera,
paper
register.
advertising that has to happen. So chances are the best we're gonna be able to do is get it on the street next week,
It would be,
February 1st.
February 1st.
so if we advertise, so she puts it in the central register and gets an ad out next week, it will run on the 7th or the 8th. Because you put it in the Thursday before.
Thursday before, right.
So she would have to get it in next Wednesday or Thursday, the 31st or the 1st. And it would run, I think it is the 7th. It will run
It
on the
would.
7th.
Okay, so then we would run till the 7th of March
You
Yes.
could either, yeah,
Yep.
to give us 4 weeks.
yep. We would just have to do, I think, the interviews on March 12th,
which is a Tuesday night or afternoon,
Okay,
in order to not run into the end of the month vacation schedule.
yeah, understood.
So, if you're okay with that, that works.
Okay,
If you left it for 3 weeks, it would be back on February 29th, and you'd still have a couple days, but that's really, I don't know,
I
Mike.
just, I get concerned about the 3
I
weeks.
do too.
It just doesn't give
Plus,
them
we
a
have to
lot
have
of
a list-
time to put a proposal together.
And we have to have a listening session, which, as Mike's looking at his calendar, I would say like maybe February 15th and
Yep.
16th would be the listening session. Do we have to do a site visit at the PD?
We could do it at the PD, do the,
Do both?
do
Do them
both
both
right
at the same
PD.
time.
Okay.
And it would be like during the day,
Right.
maybe 10 in the morning or something, have a session. We'll all be down there.
And that's not, the committees wouldn't be required to be at that, but if you wanted to, you certainly could. But we just need to coordinate that with the chief to make sure that they don't put us in a cell or something when we do go in down there.
We're open 24/7. 365.
Doors always open?
Yep.
So if you did the 15th for the listening session,
Just not between 2 and 6 in the morning.
you could do like 11 a.m., Mike, through however long in the afternoon.
Yep.
I'm sure the chief could at least reserve the conference space, just,
And we talked to them a bit, then we could take them around. And that's real important, because they're searching at that point. They want to see, they want to hear some stuff, they want to see what you got,
Let's see what you got and what you want.
and what you want. And it's funny, because, I mean, there's so many people out there, and as you go through this interviewing people, and who shows up, who they hired recently that has worked for you before. I mean, they're always, everybody out there is kind of juggling to say, you know, what's gonna get me this job?
right.
And do I like working for this community? Have I worked for them before? I mean, there's a lot of that. Franklin's a good place for designers and OPMs and contractors to work with, because we provide a lot more help.
Right.
We've been doing it for years, so it's, you know,
We pay our bills on time, they
We
know
pay
we're
really quick.
reliable, you know, I mean, yeah,
And we've done our share of buildings over
we've
the
done our
last
share.
15 years, 20 years, for sure.
So if you do the listening on the 15th,
Listening on the 15th,
close March 7th,
close March 7th, interviews on the 12th.
does that date work for everybody?
Is everybody okay?
I'm retired now, so it don't matter.
24/7, 365.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mike, do we do those interviews, or, Mr. Chairman, or Mike, do we do those in the afternoon? Do they take a while?
What's that, the interviews?
Yeah,
We in the past, I believe we did 45 minutes with 15-minute in between. So, you know, we allowed an hour for each. And sometimes we use the 15 minutes in between just to recap what we saw in the 45 minutes. But I can assure you, having done many of these, I can assure you, you know in the first 5 minutes whether it's somebody that's you're gonna be interested in or not, for sure.
it's kind of like an interviewing employee.
right.
Does anybody have any issues with the dates? And we can fine tune the time for the interviews, whether, you know, we use 5, 6, and 7, 4, 5, and 6, or something along that line. Late in the day, I would think, for some of us who still work for a living.
Private sector's coming.
No offense, Delanco, Chandler.
Yeah, I think you'd at least latest start at 5, just if you're
Yeah.
doing 4 interviews at an hour or so apiece.
Yeah,
You know, that's 5 to 9, that's a long evening.
It is a long evening,
We
too.
could start it a little earlier too, if people want, we could certainly
Yeah,
try to have some refreshments, we'll try to work some of those details out. But I just think for the committee, just to make sure they block off that afternoon and evening, just because that'll be a full afternoon.
and then following that, it could take a month, it could take, before negotiations, Jamie gets done, negotiating and actually getting a contract. So, we would, probably into April before we're looking at having somebody ready to be given a date.
Yeah, I would think just because the vacation season and stuff with winter, I'm guessing that it'd probably be towards the middle to end of April. Probably around April vacation is what I would ballpark in my head to hopefully have a contract
Okay.
done in OPM. And then after that, if there's a contract, Mike, right, then we'd be coming back to this group to kick things off, right?
Have a
Yeah,
kickoff meeting,
absolutely.
There it goes.
And then start working
Then it all
towards,
begins,
then we're looking into designer.
yeah. That's when the fun will really start.
Yeah.
That's when I can see people already with their wish lists.
Yeah, yeah. And the sites.
Get them out early, because one thing we don't do, what don't we do, Mike?
Change requests.
Very good. We do not do change orders.
Actually, so on that topic, the wish list, does the OPM, just for the group's edification, does the OPM charge the chief and the deputy chief and Officer Rosa and Gary others to develop, is there any work that they need to do now to prepare for later this spring, or?
They could certainly begin to put together what the needs are, and to a degree, I won't call it a wish list, because, what are the needs of the Franklin Police Department? And the OPM will help us
Right,
develop that needs list, and then we'll work with the architect, once the architect's on board, and the architect will help us fine tune that, tell us, well, this station, in this town, we did this, rather than that, and those decisions would be made by this committee.
So-
Sure, Chief?
Yeah, so what I was gonna ask is like, so how do we, for instance, we're building this to last how many years? What's the build out for the town of Franklin projected to be at that time? How many police officers will we have when our population is 45,000, civilian staff, et cetera? Do you wanna build it on a piece of property that's gonna allow us to expand, or are we gonna build something big enough that might actually have space that is being unused when it's actually done, until we actually get to that size due to the population increasing and the call for service? Things like that I don't know. I mean, we go in the
Yeah.
planning department for those types of.
Those are very good questions, and questions that we need to get answers to. But I do, the existing police station was built in 91. So, 30 years, it probably is 5 to 10 years beyond its life expectancy.
And they didn't plan for that.
No, and they
plan
didn't
for-
plan for any part of that, because, at the time, and I understand, there was a piece of property that was available that wasn't gonna cost us any money, and decided to put the building on that piece of property, and there's no way to expand or do anything really beyond what's currently there now.
I'd even go further. I mean, the concept and everything was done in the late 80s, and then
Yeah.
we were the fastest growing town for 5 years in a row, from 91 to 96. I mean,
Yeah. Nobody
whoever could have
predicted.
predicted that would no longer be here, because they'll be living somewhere a hell of a lot more expensive, because they made a ton of money, you know?
And I think to a degree, part of the answer you're looking for is, what is the build-out? Well, You know, what was it, in 2022, there were 10 single-family homes built in the town of Franklin. 10. There's not a whole lot of land left. There's not a whole lot of big acreage left either. A couple of the biggest ones the town just purchased, being Maple Hill and Schmidt's Farm, so those are off the coffers, so there's not a whole lot of, I don't see us growing substantially in the next 15 to 20 years. But I think if you're not looking at 20 years out of a building, you're not doing the town justice. You know, you're not doing the residents justice. You have to be looking out that time frame. But what is that number? You know, we could get some direction from our administration there as well.
Yeah, I think, comment I would have is, I think Brian and Amy in the planning department will be very helpful, especially when the OPM is here, on working on quote-unquote build out. But I think in the interim, I think, you know, why the three of you are on the committee in particular, as well as Gary, is we have public safety needs in this town now, and I think you have a very good vision of what they may be in the next 10, 15, 20 years. I think you probably already know the cells don't conform to A, B, and C code. We all know the locker rooms are a big problem. You know, there's not enough space. Like, I think you guys can generate and begin that list and at least engage the members of the department to ask them what they would be looking for in a police station. In some way, this is a part of the time frame where I you know, it's not the wish list, but in some ways, you know, Councilor Chandler was a police department member here for many decades. I think a lot of people in the department have probably a big wish list of ideas that they have, and I think if you can engage those now for several months, you already have a head start. I don't know if I would worry too much about, you know, 2050 or 2060 yet, because I think while we want to build the building for a lot longer than this one lasted, the OPM is really going to do a lot of the number crunching on our behalf with the planning department about what population projections are going to be. And they'll use assumptions in that, like if zoning changed downtown and you have 6 stories, what does that mean? The remaining pieces of land that are available in town, you know, how many houses can you do? Our GIS analyst, Kate, will work with people in the OPM to get all that figured out. So, but I think right now is like the fun part. Like, what do you hate about the current building, right? I'm sure everybody has a reaction to that. What is the stuff that doesn't comply with what the modern standards are that we hear from in community policing? When you go to see other buildings, to Councilor DeLoco's point, you're gonna go, oh, I really like that. Oh, I hate that. I like the lighting that way. I like the, and that's all great. But I think still to start now to generate those kind of fun ideas of what you would want, you know, there's nothing that stops you from doing that. And then when the OPM gets hired in a couple months, you already have the list of things you hate,
Starting this.
things you really need, things you know are out of compliance, the evidence room we fixed, but it's still not really exactly the way we would design it new. And so what do the detectives need? What do they need for gear, space, you know, uniforms? I don't know, but that's up to all of you. And the OPM's gonna come back to you, Chief and Deputy Chief, and address it and say, you know, you're the experts down there, you gotta tell us what you know, what you see and what you need for the future. So I think that's a fun part right now, you know, and what you can kind of design out, and that will help the OPM in a couple months get started off on the right foot.
What's that?
Oh, yeah, no, we know what we need. I just don't know what, you know, I want to make sure that we're not in the same boat as that we're in now, you know, 30
Yeah.
years down the line. If it's,
No,
if
absolutely.
Yeah.
we're gonna, if you're gonna say that you want the building for 30 years and that's it, we're tearing it down, okay. But if it's gonna remain, that we either have space to be able to either expand or we build it, you know, with the best knowledge, best information we can have currently. It's not
Absolutely.
perfect, we don't know. it's perfect.
And the piece of property that, you know, we're gonna have to ultimately find and look for, obviously, those are the kinds of things that will be taken into consideration as we consider different sites.
In the parking. And you ran out of parking a long time ago. We really need to make sure with some projections that you're not in a bad spot 15 years from now.
For sure. When you have all those cars that are driving themselves.
Ooh, that sounds scary.
I don't know if that's gonna work.
Well, charging stations, right? I mean,
Charging
eventually
stations,
that's
yeah,
where things
yeah.
are going. I mean, that's the stuff that y'all know in your fields. You're the experts, not me. I mean, those are the things I think you just get just get a nice list down, talk to the departments, talk to the staff.
Yeah, and talk,
It's a
certainly
fun
talk
part.
to other departments, other departments that have built
Yeah.
a new station in the last 10 years. What do they like about it? What did they do wrong? And that's always a huge help, as you start to build the needs. Okay. Mike, was there anything else you needed from us?
Nope, that's it. Just
I just-
How's that last one?
Sure.
pick everything up. This is
No,
your
no, no,
chance.
it's more just about the interview. If you guys are intending to do it outside of business hours, just in your interview section, it just says during business hours, just so that they know that if you're planning outside, that was all.
You make that note, Jamie? I don't see anybody writing, so somebody make that note, please.
I get it.
Okay.
Amy had her back.
Amy, thank you, Amy. Okay, any other questions on anything at the moment? Okay, thank you one and all. This will be at an hour. We will have meetings that will go much longer. I assure you, as the process starts. But this is good. I think we're off to a good start. I think we have a good RFP here ready to hit the streets, and let's cross our fingers and hope we get some really good proposals back. And as they come in, once we get them all, we'll get a copy out to everybody, so they get a chance. You get plenty of time to review them before the interview process. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Non-debatable. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Recording stopped.
Thank you.